Next on the news, a pro-life amendment in Kansas fails after voters head to the poll for a key vote. Plus,
we are all in this together.
They are providing much-needed help for flooding victims. We'll speak with 2 Catholic leaders in Kentucky about relief efforts. Also, a woman's doorbell camera captures an eviction mix-up in progress, how she put a stop to the whole thing. And luckily, she was watching more than the road, the bus driver who really helped out a little boy. I'm Emily Druby in for Christine Persichetti. Current news starts right now. The pro-life fight lives on tonight despite some new developments over just 24 hours. Tuesday night, Kansas lawmakers voted against removing the right to an abortion from the state constitution. And on Wednesday, President Biden signed an executive order to help women looking to cross state lines for abortions.
Congress must codify the protections of Roe as federal law. And if Congress fails to act, the people of this country need to elect senators and representatives who will restore Roe and will protect the right to privacy, freedom, and equality.
The executive order signed by President Biden helps cover costs for women who travel from states where abortion is illegal to obtain the procedure. More specifically, the order directs states to write their individual rules so Medicaid will cover some of those costs. During his announcement, Biden also supported the decision that came out of Kansas less than 24 hours before, when voters chose to keep the right to an abortion in their state's constitution. For abortion advocates celebrating the win, while pro-life advocates are condemning them. The Kansas Catholic Conference, including strong anti-abortion advocate Kansas City Archbishop Joseph Naumann, he released this statement in regards to the decision in the state. We are sorry to see that the most vulnerable human being in our society, the unborn child, will not be protected but further treated with indifference and injustice. While yesterday, Patrick Kelly, the Supreme Knight of the Knights of Columbus, called for even more action.
We will continue to march for life until abortion is unthinkable.
Kelly said even with Roe v. Wade overturned, they still need to fight as many states will just expand protections.
We are not done. The end of Roe is a crucial milestone, but we cannot mistake it for the end of abortion. We can hope it's the beginning of the end. And as Knights, we must push forward with all the courage and compassion we can summon.
Kelly further urged his Knights to attend the annual March for Life, a major pro-life event set for early 2023 in Washington, D.C. One Catholic group is fulfilling a promise made by many in the church to support mothers in need. The Kathleen Mullally Foundation awarded a mom trying to pursue a higher education $1,000 in order to help pay for her baby's daycare cost. The 32-year-old from the island of Jamaica came to the U.S. a few years ago to seek medical treatments for a paralysis that hit her suddenly. Doctors gave her a long list of things she couldn't achieve, including having a child of her own. But now she's not only proving the naysayers wrong, she's trying to help others. To read the rest of the story, just go to your local church and pick up a copy of the tablet, and you can get future editions sent straight to your mailbox by going to thetablet.org. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi has left Taiwan, but her visit to the island is still making waves. Pelosi boarded a plane at an airport in Taipei on Tuesday, ending a high-stakes trip that Beijing said would have a severe impact on U.S.-China relations. The House Speaker says the visit was meant to show America's support for Taiwan's democracy.
We come in friendship. We thank you for your leadership. We want the world to recognize that.
President Biden also warned Pelosi not to travel to Taiwan. The island democracy governs itself, but China claims it as its territory. Flooding victims in Kentucky are now dealing with heat and the devastation left behind by a massive storm. At least 37 people were killed, and as Mike Valerio reports, only now is the true magnitude of the damage being discovered.
Mass devastation for miles across multiple Kentucky counties, revealing itself as unprecedented floodwaters recede nearly a week after violent storms struck the state.
What can you do when your little town is, your little city's devastated? I mean, it was like a war zone.
The mayor of the hard-hit town of Fleming Neon describes the aftermath she witnessed alongside the police chief.
When I was getting in my car, he said, "It's not pretty. I just want you to be prepared." And I said, "Okay." Well, I wasn't prepared.
Kentucky's governor is sounding the alarm on the potentially life-threatening temperatures they're now facing, but stresses response teams will not be deterred.
About every 2 miles, there's another place distributing water that people are pulling through, putting supplies in their car. Help has truly shown up, and it's real special to see.
As help pours in, the governor says more than 400 people with nothing left are now living in shelters.
That is only a fraction of the overall number of displaced people. Most are with friends or with family because that's what we do as Kentuckians.
We're not victims here. We're survivors.
Mike Valerio, Currents News.
Having seen the devastating effects of a natural disaster, Archbishop Shelton Fabre of the Archdiocese of Louisville, Kentucky, knows how parishioners can help in such situations. The Archbishop joins us now with more on what's being done. Thank you for being here.
My honor. Thank you very much for your interest in this very important story.
Now, Archbishop, after serving as a bishop in Louisiana for 15 years and experiencing multiple hurricanes, you know what those in Lexington are experiencing. How has this shaped your response?
The important thing is knowing that you're not going through this alone. And my response was immediate to ask our Catholic Charities to help in any way that they could, and then asking for a second collection this weekend in the Archdiocese of Louisville. As you know, last year, our sister diocese in Owensboro dealt with tornadoes, and there was a response from the Archdiocese of Louisville. And Louisville also wants the best of our ability to help the church in Lexington and to help the people in the Diocese of Lexington to receive what they need.
I'm sure it's so incredible to see your parishioners helping out and really being there for their fellow people from the state. Now, I know the roads are impassable right now, but are you going to try to get into the area in the future?
Yes, it is my hope to be able to visit once the crisis is over. You know, right now there's still so much going on, but once things, are much more calmer, so to speak, I will travel to Lexington and just see for myself how we might help. And as I've come to Louisville, I always say we are all in this together. And I tell the good people of Lexington, we are all in this together. And we, the Archdiocese of Louisville, we will be here to assist you in every way that we can. And I look forward to visiting.
Faith can be so important when dealing with a disaster. Now, how has the Catholic Church been a refuge and offered support to those suffering over this past week?
I've seen reports where practical needs have been met for food and water. Certainly, in the storms of life, just knowing that the Lord is with you and just a prayer and just knowing that I'm not in this by myself. Faith is very, very important. So I know that the church is there providing that refuge in the storm for the spirit. And I also know that the church is there providing people, along with other agencies, some of their practical needs, food and water and shelter. And I also want to say that the church will be there in the long run. Catholic Charities is here for the long haul to help the people in the Diocese of Lexington.
Archbishop Shelton Fabre from the Archdiocese of Louisville, Kentucky, it's been such a pleasure to hear how you are assisting with the flooding disaster. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you very much. My pleasure.
And you too can help people in Kentucky. Just go to CatholicCharitiesLexington.org and click on Disaster Services to donate. And still ahead on Currents News, we speak with a pastor of a Kentucky church taking part in the flooding relief efforts. They know exactly what to do. The parish gave much needed supplies to those who were suffering after tornadoes ripped through the state late last year. Father Carl McCarthy joins us coming up on Currents News. And the scary weather continues across the country with 2 tornadoes that touched down in Pennsylvania and West Virginia. One twister was caught on camera by a West Virginia resident in the town of Dallas. The National Weather Service confirmed that a pair of tornadoes touched down, one in southwestern Pennsylvania and one in West Virginia. During severe storms on Monday, so far no injuries have been reported and cleanup is underway. Now over to Northern California, where a deadly wildfire has claimed the lives of 2 more people, bringing the death toll up to 4. The Mckinney Fire is now in its 6th day. The blaze has burned over 56,000 acres and has grown into the state's largest wildfire of the year. California Governor Gavin Newsom has declared a state of emergency and thousands have been evacuated. 2 people have died, including a 5-year-old girl in an apartment fire in East Harlem. Fire officials say the flames broke out around 3 Wednesday morning at the high-rise building in Manhattan. The young girl and her father's 36-year-old girlfriend were taken to the hospital, where they were later pronounced dead. The girl's father is in critical condition. Authorities say the flames were contained to their apartment. A cause has not yet been found. Mayor Eric Adams coming out in defense of having a strong police presence on the streets of New York. Adams said communities have been telling him they want more, not less cops on the ground, especially to address gun violence, adding he will crack down on police officers who abuse their power. According to recent NYPD statistics, murder, shootings, and gun violence victims in the city have all increased since 2021. Tributes today for the great sports announcer Vince Scully.
If I have a trademark, it would be to call the play as quickly and as accurately as I possibly can, and then shut up and listen to the roar of the crowd.
Scully died on Tuesday at the age of 94. From 1950 through 2016, the legendary broadcaster was the voice of both the Brooklyn and Los Angeles Dodgers. MLB Commissioner Rob Manfred said Scully embodied the very best of our national pastime. Again, Vince Scully was 94 years old. There's a lot more news headed your way. They were sheriff's deputies serving an eviction notice, but they were making a huge mistake. How one woman put a stop to it. Also, they desperately need the help just to survive. More on how Catholic churches in Kentucky are helping the flooding victims. And he may be back at the Vatican, but Pope Francis reflects on his trip to Canada. We'll hear from him next. A woman in Florida panicking after an eviction mix-up. As it turns out, sheriff's deputies were at the wrong door. The incident would have continued if it weren't for the woman's doorbell camera. Fadia Patterson has more of the video.
Jennifer Michelle has been living in this Land O'Lakes neighborhood for 13 years.
Whenever somebody rings the doorbell, you actually get a notification.
Michelle says she knows everybody in her community, but Thursday she had some unexpected visitors while she was away at her mother's home.
Hello? Hello? What are you doing? We're here to finalize the eviction. What eviction?
Her doorbell ring captured video of Pasco County deputies trying to serve an eviction. A locksmith had also drilled a hole in her lock, only they were at the wrong house.
As soon as I said my name to the police officers, they realized that they were at the wrong house.
That eviction was meant for a neighboring home.
We do apologize. We have the wrong house. It's the next door neighbors. What we're going to have to do is they're going to have to repair their lock.
She rushed back to talk to deputies.
One of the first things that I asked them was, who is responsible for reading the numbers on the house? The police officer told me that they all are.
She says she was stunned by the simple mistake that could have cost her family everything.
This is what made me angry at that moment, is if I didn't catch it on my ring, then I would have got home from my mom's doctor's appointment, I would have got home from lunch, and my key wouldn't go in. And I would have no idea why.
She posted the video on TikTok, and it has now gone viral with over 5 million views.
I don't have any hatred towards anybody. I get that it was a mistake. Mistakes happen. it is a big mistake to make.
That was Fadia Patterson reporting. The Pasco County Sheriff's Office says it is investigating how the error occurred. A Kentucky parish is paying it forward using their leftover resources from a previous disaster to now help flood victims in the state. In December of 2021, the Bluegrass State was one of the 8 states that was slammed by deadly tornadoes. The twisters killed at least 74 people and left behind mass devastation. But Christ the King Church in Madisonville was miraculously spared, and so the parish took it as an opportunity to step up and help those who weren't as lucky. Now, months later, they're coming to the rescue again, helping the victims of the latest Kentucky floods. Pastor Father Carl McCarthy joins us now to tell us more. Father, thank you for being here.
It's good to be with you this afternoon.
Now, Father, you witnessed firsthand a disaster 8 short months ago after a tornado caused widespread damage in your area. Can you explain what that was like?
Yeah, shocking, to say the least, on December the 10th of 2021. And, you know, I think in those days just after what we experienced was shock. Many people had their homes, their very livelihood, you know, taken away from them, and in a matter of seconds, minutes. And so we have an understanding, you know, what our brothers and sisters, fellow Kentuckians, are going through on the east in the eastern part of our state in Appalachia.
Now, having seen your flock go through a disaster, knowing how this feels firsthand, has this past experience spurred you to help more with the flooding?
Yeah, definitely. You know, there's a Haitian proverb that the heart cannot feel what the eye has not seen. So our eye has seen this firsthand, you know, with the tornado, and our heart feels it. So there's a compelling piece within each of us that wants to reach out and help another.
Now, speaking of helping, how are you getting your parishioners involved in helping with the flooding aftermath?
So I've reached out to our Catholic Charities office in the Diocese of Owensboro and learned that that we are trying to fill a semi-tractor trailer full, and that will be taken to the Diocese of Lexington. You know, we don't want to overwhelm them, because we know what that was like here. We were overwhelmed with the response. So I'm going directly through our diocese. Also, we'll be taking up a collection. I'll be letting our parishioners know this weekend that next weekend we will take up a monetary offering, a collection.
Now, you say the response to the disaster you went through was overwhelming. I know you mentioned before that people were so generous. They gave you so much. You had a ton of leftover supplies. Are you going to be using any of that and sending any of that out to the flooding victims? And how are you going to do that?
Yeah, so we did have leftover supplies. We had tarps, we had gas cans, we have rakes and shovels, we have gloves, those kinds of things. So we are going to be getting that to the Diocese of Owensboro. And as I noted earlier, they will be sending a semi-tractor trailer full in the coming week or so to the Diocese of Lexington.
Father, thank you so much for sharing your story with us today. It's incredible to hear how you are helping out. Father Carl McCarthy, pastor of Christ the King Church in Madisonville, Kentucky. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And again, to help the people in Kentucky, just go to CatholicCharitiesLexington.org and click on Disaster Services to donate. Pope Francis spent part of his Wednesday general audience talking about his memorable trip to Canada. The Holy Father explained to the pilgrims the journey of remembrance, reconciliation, and healing he shared with indigenous communities.
Insieme abbiamo fatto memoria. La memoria buona della storia millenaria di questi popoli in armonia con la loro terra.
Pope Francis also entered the audience hall walking with a cane instead of being in a wheelchair like he was for much of the trip to Canada. The Tablet newspaper has full coverage of that memorable trip to Canada. You can see snapshots of all the places the Holy Father visited, the indigenous people he greeted, and how Pope Francis went through the entire trip promoting reconciliation and healing following wrongdoings to the country's indigenous people by the Catholic Church. Once again, you can pick up the paper at your local church and subscribe to future editions on thetablet.org. Still to come on Currents News, it's a different way to hear the words of Bishop Brennan. Next, details on his new podcast and how you can hear it. And the young boy who's safe and sound thanks to a bus driver with an eagle eye. Do you have a story idea or want to share a tip? Email us at newstips@desalesmedia.org or call our 24-hour number 718-517-3122. We'll be right back. Looking for a good podcast to listen to? How about one from the Bishop of Brooklyn? Bishop Robert Brennan is one of the hosts of a new podcast out now called Big City Catholics. Here's a sneak peek of the latest episode on the importance of grandparents with fellow co-host Father Christopher Heanue.
It's funny in some ways. I live in the midst of this technological age and certainly using all of that. And every once in a while I have to remind myself that, maybe I'm not quite the elderly stage, but I am at the age of grandparents. My contemporaries are grandparents, and I'm actually reminded of that sometimes now as I'm ordaining priests who were born after I was ordained.
There are currently 7 episodes of the podcast out now that you can enjoy. To listen to them and to catch new episodes as they come out every Friday, just go to podcast.dioceseofbrooklyn.org or search for Big City Catholics on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. She's a bus driver in Green Bay, Wisconsin, who keeps her eyes on more than just the road. She actually helped out a young boy who was lost. As Casey Torres reports, the kind act was captured on video.
It's more than just eyes on the road. Green Bay Metro Transit bus operators have public safety in mind.
Operators are trained to be very observant and aware of all their surroundings, so a lot goes into it when they're moving down the road.
That training kicked into high gear for one driver last Tuesday when a little boy ran across the street on the corner of Kingston Terrace and Princeton Place in Bellevue. A busy street just 1 block away in the direction he is heading. The bus driver was finishing up one of her final routes for the night at this bus stop. When she spotted the toddler walking all alone, she didn't hesitate to help. In this video, you see the driver, who declined an on-camera interview, bringing the boy into the bus around 6:30 p.m.
We're going to find your mom and dad, okay? See if we can find out where they went. Did you wander away from the house? Yeah. Do you live here? Are you in the apartment?
She continues asking questions and reassures the boy they'll find mom and dad. This goes on for about 10 minutes until law enforcement shows up.
Hey, buddy. How are you? He doesn't seem to know a whole lot. He was just standing in the middle of the road here.
The boy was reunited with his mom. Green Bay Metro Transit's operations supervisor, Jake Liptow, is proud of the driver and says it's what they do.
It just goes to show the great job that the drivers do in utilizing that training, being observant, aware of their surroundings, and always willing to help out in any way that we can.
That was Casey Torres reporting. Thankfully, the toddler is now back with his family, safe and sound. And that is Currents News. I'm Emily Drewby. Thank you for joining us because we are putting your faith in the news. Hope to see you again next time.